Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. So this is our very, very first panel of Jaipur BookMark after Naveen's wonderful opening speech. And it's absolutely fitting that what we are doing in this panel is talking to people who love books, who celebrate books, who have what Naveen was talking about, books and translation being a passion. Every single one of our panelists is passionate about books and about the real book, the paper book, the manuscript, the book you can feel. And I'm sure that all of you are also passionate about digital books, but we're going to be talking about really celebrating books and loving them and trying to find a way of getting them out. The Norwegian ambassador mentioned this wonderful statistic of the average Norwegian reading 16 books in a month. And not surprisingly, women reading more than that. So we all clapped and applauded at that. And I think given half a chance, as all of these book lovers will tell you, that given half a chance, if Indians could have access to books in quite the same way, I think we'd be rapidly making our way towards that statistic. So it's great to have you all here. I'm just going to ask you to tell your stories, but briefly to introduce our panelists to you, we have a publisher, Nikko, who publishes books that he loves, which have to do a lot with Buddhism. It's a small publishing house called Shambhala. We have Akshaya and Satabdi who walk around, travel around the country, India, trying to reach books to people, having decided that if people can't come to books, they'll take the books to people. So I'm going to ask you to talk about your work. We have Shruti here, who started this wonderful initiative of leaving books on the metro. So people who would get onto the Delhi metro after she or her friends or others had gotten off would find a random book lying somewhere and might pick it up to read and might be encouraged to leave another book for somebody else to read. And we have Tilak ji, who works in a lovely museum in Jaipur. If you have time, जा सकते हैं लोग देखने के लिए? Yes. So if you have time, you must visit it. He has a collection the idea of making this collection he inherited from his father who started it. And it's a collection of over 100,000 manuscripts in palm leaf, in potato paper, in tree bark, and in a whole range of ivory, metal. So I'll leave him to tell you about it. He will speak in Hindi and I will translate what he says. But we'll start by the publisher. Would you like to talk about what you do and why you do that, and how does the love of books inspire you to do what you do? So really tell your stories and then we'll talk after those.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I'm really happy to be in this kind of first session that I think really is the heart of why all of us are in this business and why we're all here today. Is just an absolute love of books. The company I work for is called Shambhala Publications. We're about 40 people in Colorado, and we've been around for almost 50 years. Not me, but and we're very much it's a family-owned independent publisher. And we're very much mission-driven in the sense that we're really trying to bring books into the world that benefit people somehow, that are really able to, that people can connect with and somehow transform their own lives and improve their own lives. It's not really self-help, but either on the spiritual plane, through a lot of our more tradition-oriented, wisdom tradition kinds of books, to our health and well-being, yoga philosophy, sort of across psychology, sort of across the areas that we publish into. And one of the wonderful things, why my job is a dream job, is because we're really our first thought with all these is what's our motivation first. when we're trying to decide whether we publish something. Luckily, we've been around for 50 years, so we have this fat backlist that gives us a little bit more freedom. But there are things that we do because we love the books and in particular areas so much. An example I'll give is we just agreed to publish, and it comes out later this year, a book by depending on who you ask, either 7th century or 4th century figure who was either from Varanasi or somewhere in the Himalayas, who was either Buddhist or wasn't, named Bhartrihari. And he was a Sanskrit, a mystically inclined grammarian, but what he's best known for is being a Sanskrit poet. Now, as I think most people in the audience here know, poetry doesn't sell, at least especially in the States. I mean, it's a very difficult thing to do. But we know we won't make money from this, but we feel like this is a particularly important project. This is something that either I or one of the editors feel really passionate about and can bring it to our committee. And we're able to put that kind of book out there. And because we're sort of a niche publisher, we also know how to reach the audience of people who are interested in the kinds of things we publish through our email lists and social media and mailings that we do. We're able to really reach that audience in an effective way. Another example I'll just give briefly before I pass it on is we also, and again, this is like leading with a motivation, and it ends up being decent business as well, but we, a few years ago, started doing these South Asian editions of our books, and it's not all of our books, but I think there's about 36 now, where these books are printed in India and priced for the Indian market. And the idea wasn't like, we're going to make a ton of money doing this. The idea really is, so much of the wisdom from these books that we're producing come from India and South Asia generally. And it's ridiculous for the people in these countries for it not to be easily available because of price. So we've been working with Penguin Random House so that we get these editions in, and all of a sudden it becomes a book that a lot more people can get here, which otherwise, just because of availability and price, wouldn't have been an option in the past. So these are kind of the sort of leading with motivation and following what our heart is and what we want to put out there into the world.
Thank you. It's certainly a very different model of publishing, but one that many independent publishers actually own, which is to not look necessarily only at the saleability of a book, but how important it is to put that book out. And I'm interested to hear from you that you feel that to publish or to print here so that you can make books available at reasonable prices, because a lot of publishers would say, okay, if we sell 5 books priced at $100 here, we make more than we do by licensing the book out. So why should we actually make the book available here? So it's a somewhat different way of thinking. Yeah. And how did you develop that inside your publishing house? Was it something you started out with?
I mean, I think again, it begins with the motivation, and because we have this deep backlist, and we're a backlist publisher, we have enough sales from some of our star books that we get to play a little bit as well.
So it's good business as well.
Yeah, I mean, like that example of Bhartrihari, that won't make money. I hope it won't lose money, but it won't make a lot of money. But we feel really good about it. We're proud to produce this beautiful thing that will touch people's hearts. His words about, he talks a lot about desire and the emotions, and it's all sort of through this Buddhist lens, or it could be interpreted in other ways. But it's very moving and transformative when you read these verses, and so we want that to touch other people like it's touched us when we read this manuscript.
Thank you, Nikko. Let me turn to Akshaya and Satabdi. Walking books. Are they actually walking books? Do you walk around with them? Do you take them around in other ways? How did you come to this idea? What were the origins? What are the sort of books you take?
We started walking book fairs in 2014 in a small town called Koraput in our home state, Odisha.
Take the mic closer to you.
When we started walking book fairs, we did not really have a bookshop. What we did is we started displaying books on the street, on the pavement, on the footpath, so that more and more people could come and have a look at books, to experience books, because where we were displaying books, there were no bookshops, there were no libraries, and the people out there probably had no access to books, and there were people who came who were looking at books for the first time in their life. So their idea of a book is probably a textbook. So to see maybe a children's book or an illustrated book is something that they're doing for the first time. So we had no idea how people were going to react to books, but what we found was that people came in large numbers. They were looking at books, they were loving the books, and this is when we thought that we must take books to more people, and not just in Odisha, but more people everywhere. So this is when we decided to move around with books. And since we did not have the resources, we were carrying books in our backpacks, we were walking, we were trekking to other villages and small towns nearby, and we were displaying books. And then later on we got together a van where we loaded books, and we were moving to various other small towns and other villages in Odisha. This is our 4th year, and so far we have traveled more than 25,000 kilometers across India, taking books to thousands of people in more than 20 states of the country. So what we do is, when we travel, we have a bigger book truck now, which works as a traveling bookstore as well as a traveling library. So what we do is, when we travel, we find a space to park our book truck and open it out. So it opens out on both sides, and there are bookshelves where people can just come and browse and read and buy books. So we sell books at a discount throughout the year, which makes books more affordable for a larger number of people, because access is, in India, a lot of people cannot afford to buy books. So it is important that we make books cheaper. At the same time, there are a lot of people who want to read books but probably do not have places where they can read books, because we do not have libraries. So how we function is, we also make reading free for people who come to our book displays, where people who cannot afford to buy books can read them for free. So this is how we function. And apart from our traveling bookstore, we also have a small brick and mortar bookshop in Bhubaneswar in Odisha. And we try to give out more and more discounts to our readers so that more people can have access to books. It's all about making books cheaper and, taking it out to more people everywhere.
I started working as a waiter when I was like 18 years. And I see people, and I see there is a story in every individual. For last 15 years, I've also traveled around and also understood that we've been advertising everything. Your superstar selling Coca-Cola, of course it's going to sell everywhere. Your Prime Minister saying, okay, wear a nice kurta, everybody is going to wear that nice kurta. What we also try to do at walking book fairs is to promote books. When you take books around, when you show it to people more and more, of course they're going to come and at least touch and then open it up. If you do not take them out, if you keep them only in bigger cities and also only in big bookshops, not in the public, how is it going to be accessed by people? And also we have to be very careful with how much money a waiter earns a day and the big boss earns in a day. It's very difficult for me as a waiter to buy a book. I'm not complaining, I'm not saying as a publisher, someone has to print them at a cheaper price for me. But of course, there has to be some ways that we, the citizens, must make them accessible for every section of the society. I still remember in 1999, 2000, when I was very young, I didn't even know what is a book. Because as a child, when I was studying in a rural place in Odisha called Sundargarh, we didn't have books in our school. Yes, we had books which were mathematics, science, sociology, which is geography sometimes. I didn't even know there are story books until or unless I came across a book which was gifted to me by a foreigner. And I was thinking, all the foreigners speak English. And I was surprised that the story, the character in that book was amazing. This character, it was Albert Camus, I think, and this character was strange, right? Stranger, and I felt, is this me, or is this character somehow related to me? Because when my father died, I didn't go to the funeral. It's very strange. For most of the people in my family, in the village, they thought, why this kid even didn't come to the funeral? I didn't shave my head. You're supposed to do that if you're born Hindu. And I was like, wow, someone has actually written something about this character, and we must read different characters because they're different heads. We are restricting our citizens by not giving them different kind of literature. We are giving them a self-help book, and we're trying to create more and more laborers by giving them only access to education in order to get a degree, to get a job. My job as a human being is not to get a degree and get a job. That's not why I'm here. As governments, as democratic countries, we have somehow forgotten that we must make books more and more affordable for every section of the society. And this is what we do. We sell books at 99 right now, and a lot of bookshops and people have started complaining, why are you selling them at a lower price? But why don't we complain when actually pulp books? And it's a very clear fact that we pulp a lot of books every year. And if I am taking them at a cheaper price from Delhi or from Bombay and selling them at a very cheap price in Bhubaneswar, actually it's a nice thing for not only people who are going to read them at a cheaper price, but also for the publisher, because at least you're making something on them. Why pulp them? And also I'm sure there is a waiter somewhere, there's a sweeper somewhere, there's someone somewhere who has a little bit money which is lot lesser than what someone earns here and can afford to buy a book at a cheaper price. That's all. I'm translating a book into a reading material, and also letting everybody access them without paying anything, at least coming to a bookshop or our book truck and reading them, going through them, browsing them. I do not believe in books on a page, on a web page, sitting there, not even allowed to open. As a reader, you cannot open a book. You're just allowed to look at a review or preview. I'm sad that we have come to this time with a lot of innovation where we are restricting human emotion. I write a poem so that it is accessible to all of you, not to be there and saying, okay, this poetry has to be bought at 20 rupee a kilo or whatever. That's all.
Thank you, Akshay, for that very passionate statement. And really, I think, where is Naveen? When he comes back, we'll tell him here is something he needs to add, because you're translating a book into something to be read.
Yes.
The assumption that a book will automatically be read, you're refuting that, subverting that, and translating it. Shruti, what about you? You are doing the same thing in a way, but you've chosen a different method. So how did you come to start this business of books on the metro?
Yeah, so in a way, I think we are doing the same thing, so in a different way. So the idea of books on the Delhi Metro was conceived while I was traveling in Delhi Metro, of course. So I am a regular commuter. On my way to work, I have to travel 1 hour. So I see a lot of people, my fellow commuters, and they are all engaged in their phones. So when I grew up, it was TV, and as technology took up, so we moved on to mobile phones, and I eventually, the paperbacks started reducing. So I hardly saw anyone, I'm a fellow reader. And whenever I saw someone, reading a book from a distance also, then I was intrigued. Wow, what is he reading? Like I found, a soul sister or something. So meanwhile, during all this commute, I stumbled upon Emma Watson's video, and she was being a fairy in London, and she was hiding books in the London underground. So that caught my attention, and I got back to what she's doing. I literally stalked her, and then I found this. So the idea is not novel, but it's definitely very noble thing. And so I went back to there's a global movement, Books on the Move Global. So we became part of that. So I contacted the founder, and I asked her that we also have this transportation system, and do you mind if I start it in Delhi and start doing the same thing? And she happily agreed, and that's how I started. So the motive behind starting this initiative was to make people get into the habit of reading and sharing. So these are two main things that I want, start reading more and start sharing those books that are, gathering dust in your bookshelf. So I know collecting books is a hobby, if you are a book lover, if you're a book reader, you get that passionate feeling, you get attached to that book. But if you have read it first time, okay, so most of the books I feel, there are very few books that really touch your heart, and these books you get back again and again, and you read them when you are sad, and when you read them when you are happy. But I think 80% of the books you don't give them a read second time. So what about those books? The books that are gathering dust on your bookshelf, these need to reach other people, because in India, I tell you what, I can buy a cloth for me, and I can buy jewelry for me being a girl, I can buy anything for me, and my parents won't mind. But if I buy a book for me, so a feeling will be, what, you wasted money on a book, on a story? Are you kidding me? So I recently bought a book, and it was priced at 1,000 rupees, and I bought it for my boss. But my parents saw me and they scolded me, you kids are unbelievable. 1,000 rupees you spend on a book. I was like, Mama, it's a book. So, that's how it is in India. So you get to read if you are studying, then you are supposed to read only your school books, your college books, like he mentioned, only your curriculum books. And if you are reading something else, then it is considered, blasphemy. You're wasting your time. So the idea was this, to, okay, fine, I cannot read at home during my study, I can read in my commute. Just give me the resources. So the idea was this, okay, I'll give you books while you are traveling, while you are free, while you are standing, while you are sitting, just hop on a good read. You don't even need to carry it in your bag. You'll stumble upon it, just take the book, read it, devour it, and when you're done, just put it back for someone else to read, and then the circle goes on. So that's how I started.
So are there other people who've joined you? Have you got any feedback on what you're doing?
Yes, definitely.
And what are the kinds of books you leave?
So as of now, we started in May 2017. So as of now, we are a group of like 40 people who are equally passionate about this. And we all are commuters. 2 of them are with me here. So we do this on a daily basis. So we daily drop a book inside the Delhi Metro, and as for the feedback, so it's been amazing. So I'll tell you, most of the people, who have picked the books left by me are now with me as book fairies. So I call them book fairies. So they are now with me as book fairies. So they have joined me in my initiative, and they really felt like, that I got a book that you left for me, and now I want to spread the happiness around with you. So this is the kind of thing, and I'll tell you a very humble story. So she's my book fairy now. She picked a book left by me, and she could not complete her education. She got married very early, and just after marriage, she got a kid also. And she's very passionate about reading. Her name is Gauri, and she told me recently that, ma'am, because of your initiative, I could get back to reading. And I travel for 45 minutes daily during my commute to work, and I always carry a book now, because now she's a book fairy, she has some ample amount of books. So she says this to me, ki, among all, family responsibilities and amongst everything, it gets so, I feel so suffocated, but there is this 45-minute of my time that is just me. And I think most of you will relate it to me being an Indian mother and Indian, wife. It's how it gets so difficult with, daily chores and the expectations and all. So it really warms my heart, that I am doing something that, even it's for half an hour or 1 hour, so that makes my heart melt.
That's wonderful. Thanks. We'll come back to all of you. I want to turn now to Tilak ji. Tilak ji, आप अपने उसके बारे में बताइए कि आपने ये कैसे शुरू किया? How did you start this initiative of collecting manuscripts, creating this museum? कहाँ से आया ये सब कुछ? किस तरह की किताबें आपके पास हैं? जी, और मैं ट्रांसलेट
जी देखिए, मेरे पापा ने 1955 में एक किताब लिखी, बेस्ड ऑन पोज एंड पोइट्री, in the age of 16 years. Due to financial hurdles, the book could not see the light of publication in 19.
बढ़िया हिंदी बोल रहे हैं वैसे?
इंग्लिश?
आप अंग्रेजी में बोल रहे हैं?
नहीं, हाँ, थोड़ा बहुत, थोड़ा जानता हूँ जी। तो जब ये किताब 1955 में मेरे पापा ने लिखी, तो पैसे नहीं थे, बिल्कुल भी। बनारस जाने के लिए पैसे नहीं थे, तो वो WT गए बनारस। सुमित्रा नंदन पंत, महादेवी वर्मा, निराला, राम कुमार वर्मा, वैद्य हनुमत प्रसाद जी शास्त्री, उनको वो किताब दिखाई पापा ने, पोज एंड पोइट्री की। उन्होंने कहा कि ये 15 साल का लड़का इन द एज ऑफ 15 ये लिख नहीं सकता पोज एंड पोइट्री पर बुक। तो पापा ने उनको कहा कि जैसे वीणा के तारों को छेड़ते हैं वैसे छेड़िए। तो फिर उन्होंने 3-3 घंटे तक शास्त्रार्थ किया वहाँ पर, खाना भी खिलाया पापा को, और उन्होंने ये आशीर्वाद दिया सुमित्रानंदन पत्नी ने, महादेवी जी ने, कि इस आचार्य की लेखनी किसी भी आचार्य के लेखनी को चुनौती देने में सक्षम है।
अच्छा, तो मैं ये कर दूँ। So Tilak ji is telling us a story of his father, who in 1955, when he was barely 16, wrote a book, this book of prose and poetry, but he had no money to publish it, and he wanted to go to Banaras, where some of the major Hindi language writers lived, such as Mahadevi Varma, Sumitra Nandan Pant, and various others, Nirala and others. He wanted to go there to show them his book. He didn't have money for a train ticket. He traveled without a ticket and went to Banaras and met them. At first, they were quite disbelieving of his capacity or his ability to write a book of prose and poetry. But he insisted they look at it, and once they looked at it, they were so impressed that they said this young man of 15 or 16 can stand tall with all the best-known writers and all the best-known thinkers in Hindi.
जब पापा वापस जयपुर आए तो किताब छपाने के लिए पैसे नहीं थे, कर्जा लेके ये किताब छपी। 1 रुपया 25 पैसा इसकी कीमत रखी गई। लेकिन जब पब्लिशर ने किताब छाप दी तो उन्होंने कहा कि ये जब देंगे किताबें तब आप पूरे पब्लिकेशन और कागज़ का पैसा देके जाओगे। तो उन्होंने पापा की ये किताब गिरवी रख ली। उसके बाद पापा ने ये सोचा कि जो लिख लिख कर मर गए राइटर्स हैं, पोएट्स हैं, हिस्टोरियंस हैं, दार्शनिक हैं, मनीषी हैं, विद्वान हैं, उनकी बुक्स का क्या हुआ होगा। तो ये विचार जैसे ही पापा के दिमाग में आया, उन्होंने 4 मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट से ये कलेक्शन स्टार्ट किया। एंड टुडे वी हैव द लार्जेस्ट कलेक्शन ऑफ मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट नॉट ओनली इन इंडिया बट ऑल्सो इन एशिया। More than 100,000 manuscripts in 16 Indian languages and 5 foreign languages. Apart from religious studies, more than 200 subjects. अंक गणित, रेखा गणित, बीज गणित, खगोल, भूगोल, न्याय, नैतिक शिक्षा, कामशास्त्र, वास्तु, संगीत, नृत्य, वेद, श्रुति, स्मृति, ब्राह्मण, नारायण्यक, उपनिषद, पुराण, डांस एंड म्यूजिक, more than 200 subjects apart from religious study. The Indian education system, one of the oldest educational system in the world. It may be Egypt's pyramids or Maya dynasty or Babylon. We have writing evidence till today. The love of book, you all eyewitness inside museum, 200 subjects with illustration. With illustration. 10th century onward you will find on paper, and before 10th century you will find on palm leaf, beech bark, sandalwood, ivory, leather, papyrus, scrolls, so many things. This is the largest collection in very humble way, not only India and Asia. The one book of my father, Pranjali, convert into more than 100,000 manuscripts.
So, if I could just tell you the backstory, which she said in Hindi.
Just a moment. And this is the first museum in the world, not only in India. Complete 1955 till today, pest control through herbal medicines. जावित्री, जायफल, लौंग, इलायची, भीमसेनी कपूर, अगर तगर, सफ़ेद चंदन, लाल चंदन, नीम का पाउडर, तंबाकू का चूरा, more than 25, and so many kind of papers. You understand? Bamboo paper, jute paper. The Bengali manuscript you will find on jute paper, and Madhya Pradesh manuscript you will find on cotton paper and grass paper, and Assamese manuscript on bamboo paper also you can see inside. 16 is Indian languages, but more than, I think, more than 30 kind of scripts in 100,000 manuscript, and Rajasthani language more than 25, the regional languages, so many. This is the complete civilization, the complete orientation program, inter-exchange programs started from Rig Veda. You will eyewitness in Sanjay Sharma Museum. It's my humble request, all of you, if you have time, please give your time, and you can eyewitness the one book love convert into 100,000 manuscripts.
Thank you. So the slight backstory that he gave in Hindi, because the rest of it he spoke in English, so I'm sure that you've got that. He talked about how when his father returned from Banaras to Jaipur with the manuscript of this particular book, he did eventually get a publisher to publish it, and the book was priced at 1 rupee 25 paisa. But the publisher refused to release the stock of the book to his father until the full cost of production had been paid for, and his father did not have the money to pay that cost. And it was at that time that his father began to think of what would have happened to the many other writers who had written and whose books either could not be published or were with publishers who would not release them for want of money. And that's when he resolved to start collecting manuscripts and unpublished books. He began his collection with 4 manuscripts, and the collection is what you heard about it today. So I don't need to translate that. So thank you all. This is amazing. You see here just a slice of the many, many, many people who are really passionate about books and who are doing something or the other to actually reach books to people, to preserve them, to pursue their passion. I'm not sure how much time we have, but I have another couple of questions for you, and then I want to open it up. So do we have about 15 minutes still? Yes? Okay. So I want to actually come back to all of you about how you started. You are a reader, you were passionate about books. I mean, Akshay talked about being a waiter and wanting books and not being able to afford them. How did you come to this, Shatabdi? Were you actually a book lover?
Well, yes, of course. I think I grew up not with many books, but yes, I loved books. I loved reading books, and I'm sure Akshay loved reading books. But it went beyond that. I think because I was troubled by what was happening all around us, and what is still happening around us, and we thought that we must take books to more people, because maybe that is that's the only way that we can probably do something about what is so troubling all around us.
How do you choose the books, for example? I mean, what kind of books are they? How do you choose them? Do you have any idea? Who are your readers? Is there a profile of different kinds of readers? Is it just middle class people? Is it others? How far are the books reaching?
For our brick and mortar physical bookstore, it's all kinds of readers. It's it's in Bhubaneswar, so it's students, it's housewives, it's working people, it's all kinds of people. So it's a curated bookstore. We have books in English mostly, from various publishers, from various national publishers. When we travel though, we do carry English books. Along with that, we take some books in Odia, and it's mostly and also children's books, of course, a lot of picture books, because there are also a lot of children who do not know how to read and write. So picture books work great, for all kinds of people. Even adults spend a lot of time, exploring all these books, because most people, when we travel, even not just in rural spaces, but in different towns also, in different parts of India, we've seen that since a lot of people have not seen so many different kinds of books, it's always wonderful, how people react when they see so many books. So when we travel with our book truck, it's about 4,000 books that we carry, and these books are all on display, so it's very interesting for people to see this, this bookshelf, full of different kinds of books. So people are very interested in looking at these books and exploring different kinds of books. So that's about it, and more often than not, people buy books. It's not that people can't buy books or don't want to buy books. It's just that people don't have access to books. Everywhere, in villages, in small towns, in metros, everywhere.
I also want to add something. Every piece of book somehow is a piece of art. The book covers, they can say a lot of things. So we also try to work with various publishers to get also good book covers. It may sound funny, but somehow there's a lot of money somewhere who can spend money, and there's no money at all somewhere. So we have to also figure out a way to somehow sell books to make enough money to sustain, and sell books at 5 rupee 50 paise also. Because we also get books from NBT which are priced at a very low MRP, but you don't make a lot of money selling them. If you sell a truckload of books from NBT, they're less than like a rupee. To sustain in a market where everything else you require for your business is almost the same price paid by other industries. As a bookstore, it is very vital to get books also at a very higher price and sell them at higher price for people who can afford it, and also at a very cheap price to people who cannot afford expensive books. All sort of children book, we are working with Penguin, we are working with HarperCollins, we are also working with Adivani, we are working with Tara, and also, like I said, NBT and Tulika. So Tulika and Pratham, for instance, Pratham's books are very cheap, but you don't get a cut on it. Like they give you a 20-25% margin. So when I sell lakh a rupee, I make only 20,000 rupees. That makes it very difficult to survive me as a bookseller.
Well, that's the classic problem, isn't it? Because the pressure to price books high comes from the distributor.
Yes.
But okay, let me ask you a slightly different question. When you take your truck to a particular place, do you need to get permission to park it there? Does the police harass you? Can you just go and pitch up and be there?
Well, I don't think we really need to take permissions, because we also do not want to get into, a lot of hassles with traffic, and throughout India there are no open spaces left. This we found out when we were traveling across India. We were in Jaipur and it was horrible. There was traffic everywhere. There's a lot of cars, but we have so many cars and car showrooms in India, but we don't have bookshops and libraries. It's just so strange, but no,
so it's a great idea to turn the cars into the bookshops then. That's in a sense what you're doing.
But also it is not about only 2 of us or 3 of us working. Surprisingly, if you go to all the traffic intersections in Delhi or Bombay, you see all the young kids selling books, pirated maybe at times, but we could somehow translate, or I'm using translation because you're doing translation, so we can translate them into proper booksellers. Why not ask them to sell books at 99 rupee, which we are going to pulp in another 2 months' time?
You mean the kids at traffic lights who are selling pirated books?
Yeah, even there are pirated books available on online sites also.
Okay, so we are getting a signal that there's only 5 minutes left. I still have lots of questions for all of you, but we'll open it up to the audience in case there's anybody who has a comment or a question. Just quickly to mention, I'm sure you know the story of the People's Science Movement in Kerala, the Bharat Gyan Vigyan Samiti, who did something similar to what you're doing, except that they took boats along the backwaters of Kerala and carried books and boats and sold them at every village where they stopped and where they had plays and songs and so on, and combined that. And they sustained their whole publishing business out of the sales of those 5 rupee books and 10 rupee books for the longest time. So there's lots of lovely, passionate book bringers to the public across the country, which is really nice. Any questions, anything? Yes, right at the back, I can see a hand.
At this festival, is there anywhere to donate books to, like, the Delhi Metro project? Is there somewhere we can leave books?
Can you stand up and say it, please? Yeah. What?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to find out if there's anywhere here at the festival or at Bookmark where people can leave books for the Delhi Metro project or for another project.
Thank you so much for that. I didn't anticipate this would be one of the opportunities. So, but I have 2 of my book fairies here. They can get in touch with you, and we can definitely come back to you later on this. Oh, for everybody. So I'm sorry, we didn't have that in mind. So no.
Do you have a website where people can write in and say, we'd like to leave books?
Yeah, but we didn't have anything ready to collect books here, but you can obviously get in touch with through our website, and yes, we can collect books, but we usually ask people to send us books at our address. So you can contact us through our website.
I think that's what he's asking, not about giving them here.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misinterpreted.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, all of you. I would like to ask, as a budding writer, Like Sir just mentioned that there is one clients who can afford your books, say if it is priced for 200 or 300. But if you want to also make a social cause and give away books, say in semi-rural or rural areas where English is also a medium these days, so what is the way to it? Should we actually shell it out of our pockets, or how to go about it?
So what do you want? You want to know whether we sell books at only one price or different prices? Because
different prices.
What I look at is something new which can be done with MRP, minimum retail price, not maximum retail price. I would suggest we can have different formats and different pricing for the same book. We have now hardcover, and we have also limited editions with autographs. Maybe there is another way to sell books with various formats where the author can post maybe something and charge it maybe 10 times more to someone who can afford it, and use that profit to also run a minimum MRP print for school children, for students, or maybe for libraries which are in rural areas. So we have to also find out the way where we can sell the same book in different prices, and also put in money through NGOs. I do not mind people donating for a print run. What's the big deal? If I like a book, I can say, okay, I'll put in 20,000 rupees for a print run, and you can say, okay, subsidized by Akshaya. What's wrong? There are different ways, I think.
Is that right?
Thank you.
Okay, I think we can take 2 more questions. There's one I see at the back. Yeah.
First of all, it's a big honor to be able to hear you guys. It was very inspiring, all of your stories, so thanks for that. I have a question specifically for Akshaya and Shatabdi, and also for others also. So you mentioned that presently in Delhi and other cities on roadside we find these pirated books, right? Moreover, online there are also PDF files available of almost all major books, right? Now there's a different medium. This bypasses the publishers and distributors, everything. No, so earlier also you mentioned that we need to enhance the access of books to as many people as possible. But at the same time, we know that publishing is an industry where people are still struggling to make their ends meet, like there are several people involved with this process, and so that part has been taken away from them. So how do you think about solving this issue, and what do you actually feel about it? That's my question. These alternate sources
Okay, can you just hold on? We'll take the other question as well.
All right.
Can I see how many questions there are? 1, 2, 3. Okay, all right. Okay, should we take them all and then the panelists can answer them? Would you like to go first?
Yeah, firstly, this is for Akshay, and what is your outreach strategy to reach out to these people to actually come and look at the books? A lot of them get nervous about, it's a fear of the unknown, that's one. Secondly, you've done this trip across India, but how are you going to reiterate that message again? I mean, you go there once and you go away, but what happens for them to continue reading?
Okay, sir.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to congratulate Akshaya, Shatabdi and Shruti for the effort. And why don't they look at some sort of a tie-up with a corporate?
Can't hear you, can you hold them?
Why, is there a way they can look at something like a corporate tie-up as a CSR and take it forward? If so, I could be of some help.
Corporate tie-up, okay. One last question in the front.
Hi, I had a question for Nikko actually, because I just wanted to hear a little more from you about how you strategize reaching out to a potential reader, because my understanding is with the others it's more strategies. What's your USP with Shambhala is the genre, right? Do I understand that correctly? And also we share an author, Carl Ernst, but that's...
And yeah. So Nikko, do you want to go first?
I missed the the important part of the question.
The important part of the question is just want to hear a little more from you about how you strategize reaching out to a potential reader, because your genre is very specific. And now you've launched in India as well, right? Or there is an imprint that has come to India from Shambhala?
No, I think they're working with, he said they're working with Indian publishers, with Penguin and others. Yeah.
So so for us, for our outreach, and not India specific, what we really have tried to do is collect people's contact information. So we try to get as many emails as we can. We have about 250,000, which is a big number in one way and it's a small number in another. But they're very targeted. These are people who are interested in Sufism, and we know that people say what they're interested in. So we can really reach the people who are interested in Sufism or yoga philosophy or psychology or mindfulness. So we know how to reach these people, and so when we're coming out with a book, they hear from us, and we do print advertising and stuff like that. I think one of the interesting challenges that we have, this is a little bit of a tangent, but it relates, I think, to some of the other questions. What's interesting about what these guys are doing and what you're doing on the Metro is you're really kind of tapping into a market and almost like seeding a market and creating book lovers, which is amazing. What I have the problem with, I think what publishers in the States, I'm not sure if it's as much in Europe, but I think it is as well, is that we have a declining readership. The kids aren't reading. Like, I grew up getting read to and reading books. Now people get read to and then look at their phones and social media, and just kids are not reading as much. So this is something that I worry about. How do we reach these? And it's very inspiring to kind of hear these stories of discovery and like bringing the magic of books to people. And that's something that I think publishers in the States in particular really need to think about, is like, we're losing a readership that's gonna, from a business point of view, it's gonna come home to roost in 10 years and 20 years. But just, it's also very sad. It's also a very sad dynamic. So I probably haven't really answered your question, but
there'll be time. Yeah,
sounds great.
Okay, 30 seconds.
Very quick.
Yes.
PDF pirated or whatever. Can you show your PDF book to people and flash it as a fashion statement? You can't do that. So I think you know the answer. We have something physical. This is something physical. I can say, okay, I have this. You have something which you are paying for. You use internet, you pay. Every time you use internet, pay. If you don't pay, someone else is paying for you. So it's more expensive to read a PDF 10 times than buy a book. Somehow you have to do the mathematics. I know. The other one, I am not here for another 90 years. I am here for another 20, 30 years. There are constant change happening. There are a lot of people in this country who can do things. There is Ravi publishing books. I take them, I sell them at a discount. There is, lot of publisher here. I am going to take their stories, writers, sell them. But I cannot do all of it. There are thousands of other people who are doing it. I am taking out cycles, by the way. We are going to take out 20 cycles with book packs at the back, 5,000 rupee per cycle. And I'll ask a daily wage laborer to take it around and pay him 500 rupee a day. Why give him 350 rupee just for the hard work he's doing, not 500 rupee promoting books? That's all. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Akshay. Thank you. I think the thing about any really interesting conversation is that we have to cut it off at the moment when it's really starting to get interesting. So it's always incomplete, always more to talk about. So thank you all, Akshay, Shatabdi, Nikko, Shruti, Tilak, for your wonderful stories. Thank you all for listening, and thank you to Jaipur BookMark.